what they're doing to Americans' health. Every study pretty much shows that Americans pay the most for healthcare, but I think we're ranked 42nd in the world in the quality of, or in life expectancy or something like that. So our life expectancy is getting shorter while their profits are getting bigger. And we've talked about this in terms of how your health is your wealth. And that in your greatest asset is your mind and your body and your relationships. It's not how much money's in your bank account. No one in this room has enough money in their bank account such that you would trade that amount of money for your life, right? No, nobody has enough money. No one in this room has enough money in their bank account such that you would trade that money in your bank account for your best relationships with your mother, your children, your wife, or whatever the case may be. So what I am really 100% sure about, and I want to really help you make sure you understand this, is that these little investments that you make, most of them are not going to have anything to do with money. It's going to be things like getting up and going to the gym at 6 in the morning or getting on that treadmill or exercising a little bit. Because if you don't, there's a dark alley down the road where United Healthcare will slowly drain your wealth because you did not take care of your health. They're going to drain your wealth with the diabetes medication. They're going to drain your wealth with the dialysis. They're going to drain your wealth with the care from a nursing home. And so, if you want to talk about economics and wealth and wealth building in America, really a society that's full of a lot of predatory capitalism, it's extremely important that you also understand survival. And survival, in my view, becomes a strategic thing in this society because you cannot lean on the existing systems to give you all the tools for survival, right? Like I can't look to the educational system to tell me everything I need to know because all they're going to do is tell me how to get on the capitalist roller coaster and just do what I'm told, right? To fit right in like an economic drone and to have my lifeblood sucked out of me like so many other people, so many millions of people get their economic lifeblood just sucked out of their body by the capitalist machine. And I think this is why that whole assassination thing with the United Healthcare guy was really something worth talking about. I'm going to tell you the honest to God truth. If you're honest about it, you're sad that a person was hurt like that or someone was, lost their life. But you think about how many millions of lives are lost just from things that could have been prevented, right? How many millions of lives are lost because somebody couldn't afford the treatment or somebody's medication was denied coverage, right? And so at the end of the day, that's kind of an interesting thing. Now, I see someone says, didn't he rig the stock? I don't know if he rigged the stock or not. I will say this, what's interesting is that they all kind of rig it a little bit. I'm going to tell you the truth. You can use various forms of accounting in terms of how you present your numbers that will, according to some research, shift the stock price a little bit. So they're all kind of managing things. They might call it managing the stock price, but yeah, they can manipulate. There's a lot of manipulation that does happen in financial markets. That's 100% true. But just because the manipulation occurs, that does not mean that it's all horrible and terrible and corrupt and going to take all your money. It's really something where if you understand what's going on, then there's an opportunity for you and your family to benefit. So I'm a big believer in owning stock. In fact, I'm going to buy some shares of Uber, just so you know, if you want a stock that I like. I'm not telling anybody what to do, not investing advice, but I am going to buy shares of Uber because I'm really enthusiastic about what they're doing with the driverless cars. I'm not enthusiastic about it because it's the right thing to do. I think they should take care of their drivers long term. It's more so just an observation. The observation is that Uber wants to get rid of human beings, just like Amazon. They hate people because people want to get paid a living wage. They hate people because people need things like bathroom breaks and benefits and they want guaranteed employment or some type of job security, right? So because they hate human beings, they're going to replace those human beings with robots. And I believe, and the problem though is that robots are much more profitable. So rather than trying to get Uber to change their policy, which I can't do, I'm just telling you guys that this is what I'm seeing. And I think that if you are a stockholder, this might be something something to think about. Okay, not investing advice, just something that is coming to mind. Now, with that being said, I want to remind you all tonight we're doing Powernomics training. That's 100% free. If you want to be invited to Powernomics training, make sure you're on the text list for this class, and I'll invite you to Powernomics training tonight. So if you haven't gotten on the text list, text the word morning, MORNING, to 87948. Text morning to 87948. Second of all, we're going to have a Dr. Boyce real estate session on Monday. So if you want to learn real estate and join our real estate club, just go to drboycerealestate.com. That's drboycerealestate.com, and you can do the first month free. All right. So let me tell you guys about something that I was processing, right? And and there it has to do with this rapper 50 Cent. And he has this son named Marquise. I got a cousin named Marquise, by the way. And you know, there's kind of like a financial beef between 50 Cent and his son, right? And has anybody seen this? Where Marquise is he seems to have obvious daddy issues, because there was some craziness with the family in terms of, kind of the typical black broken family situation. I think that that's kind of the norm. Dr. George C. Frazier mentioned the other day very eloquently that one of the biggest crises in our community is the destruction of the black family, the annihilation of the black family, the disappearance of the black family. He believes that most black families will be somewhat extinct in 30 years. That literally the idea of having a child with two parents in the house is just going to be like considered old fashioned and gone, and every kid is just going to have a baby mama and a daddy that that they see once every 2 weeks or something like that. And I don't know, I don't like it, but you know what? Who cares what I like? It's life. And apparently 50 Cent, in all his economic glory and all his success, unfortunately, one area that appears to be an epic failure is the relationship with his son. But then again, you can't have everything, right? So with that said, though, one of the things that 50 Cent mentioned about his son, I thought it was really interesting that he was speaking so publicly about how much money he gives his son and why the beef is so public. I'm going to just say this, from the perspective of a guy who is married to a therapist. I would probably look at that and say, if you got something to say to each other, I don't know why you would say it on the internet. I kind of think saying it in a therapist's office might be more beneficial because clearly there's something there. It's one thing if you're just not talking to each other. Right? It's one thing if you're just like, look, I'm done with him, he's done with me. I'll see you when I see you. But if we're like chit-chatting back and forth on the internet, that to me is very noisy and it's somewhat immature. 50 Cent isn't known for his maturity. I'm gonna be honest with you. He kind of does some things. If you follow his Instagram page, there's a lot of childishness, almost like prankish sorts of stuff that he does. And I admit that's not my thing. And I think that there's a time where you have to be the grown man. You got to be the adult. You got to be the stoic one. You can't be trying to be a teenager with a teenager or a kid with a kid. His son's not a teenager. He's in his 20s. But 50 Cent I think he's almost 50 or something like that. So, with that said, given that they're talking so much on the internet, I kind of think talking with a therapist would be beneficial, and I think that would allow them to find a pathway to healing. Therapists are amazingly good at facilitating basic things that will allow you to talk to someone that you previously could not talk to. Anybody who, and we talk about relationships sometimes here in class because we've talked extensively about how relationships are connected to your finances. Finances impact relationships, relationships impact finances. The number one reason that black wealth does not grow is because you have bad relationships. Because you can't build wealth in a community of broken families. You can't. 50 Cent only has money because he's a rapper and white people love rappers. If white people did not love rappers and fill their pockets with money, then he'd be just a broke man who hates his son, right? That's kind of what it is, right? So because he's fortunate enough to be a black man who's in entertainment, black men in America that tend to get wealthy usually get wealthy in one of three areas. That's rapping, basketball, and comedy. If you can tell a joke, jump real high, or rap about, call yourself, the N word 50,000 times on a record, then white people will pay you trillions of dollars for that. They won't pay you to build rockets like Elon Musk. They won't pay you to build computers like Bill Gates. they will pay you to be the entertainment, right? So this idea that this is a symbol of success is something that I think should be kind of challenged a little bit. Not to say because 50 is a failure. I don't think he's a failure. Also, I don't think he's stupid. He's a very smart man. He's a genius. But when we are measuring black male success by who has the most money, then we might as well all sell out right now. Because if you're willing to sell out, they'll pay you to sell out. They'll always pay you to disrespect your women. They'll always pay you to promote violence in your own community because you're killing each other. You're not killing them. They'll always pay you to degrade yourself. They'll always pay you to promote drug use amongst the youth, things like that. And I'm not putting this all on 50 Cent. I'm just putting on this idea that we have to sort of question what success actually looks like. And if it's just based on money, then we might as well all be a pack of hoes. You might as well just go out to the corner and start selling, your fruit cocktail to anybody who walks by. You might as well go to a Diddy party and basically auction yourself off to the highest bidder. And because if money's all that matters, then who cares, right? So anyway, with that being said, I'm going to read this comment from 50 Cent, and I think this is a great point to kind of discuss finances and family and kind of how these things can be kind of analyzed, right? I'm not judging. Nobody's perfect, but I want to give some assessment on this. So 50 Cent says, my son Marquise is 27 and is still asking for child support. I give him $10,800 a month, but he says it's not enough. That's crazy, right? How many of you would be happy to live off $10,800 a month? You think you could get by with that amount? What do y'all think? You think 10,800 would help you pay, at least get most of the bills paid? What y'all think? Now, some of y'all in this class, I've met with you individually, and I know that some of you are making as much as $100,000 a month, 200,000 a month, but 10,000 a month is enough for most people. The average American does not make that amount of money, so he's a six-figure kid without, um, or having this long career that got him there. It's his father's career that did this for him. Now, remember though, we've talked about this. Those of you that do stock options income with us, I've told you if you invest in the $5 a day plan with for your kid, by the time they're 25, if they know how to manage things like do things like sell stock options, they can actually make this amount of money, actually more than this, very easily. It's not hard to do, but you have to plan ahead. All right. So anyway, let me keep going. He says, success cost me my relationship with Marquise. At 27, he should be ashamed to ask for child support. He thinks being 50 Cent's son means he doesn't have to work. I offered to set up a business for him to earn him $1 million a month, but he refused. He has an entitlement mentality, thinking that my money is his. It hurts to see him so irresponsible. I keep saying this publicly, hoping he'll be ashamed and start working. No matter how rich you are, never let your kids feel your money belongs to them. Moral lesson. Some of us at 17, we hustled on our own. I think 50 Cent is right. He needs to work and make his own money. Okay, I did not say that. I just shared this screenshot. I don't know. Somebody sent it to me. That's what I'm sharing. That is not Dr. Boyce's opinion. But that is a statement that's just up there, and I put it on my Instagram. My Instagram is Dr. Boyce Finance. If you want to join the discussion, now let's break this down a little bit. Okay, first off, we talked about the idea of him being 27 and getting $10,800 a month. For most regular people, that seems like what the hell? That's crazy, right? That he should be fine. But clearly, there's more to it than just the money, right? There's clearly some emotional void that the son hasn't had filled, and he's thinking far beyond the money. It's not just about the money. Uh, what's interesting is research shows that because 50 Cent and his son grew up in different environments, they're going to have a different relationship with money. They're going to have a different relationship with money. It's no different from LeBron James versus Bronny James. LeBron James came out of the mud. LeBron James started off poor. Bronny started off in a 20,000 square foot mansion. So their relationships with money, the way they view money is going to be very different. My wife and I, my wife grew up in Gary, Indiana. She did not have a lot of money. I was born in the projects. I did not have money. Our children were just born in it. Their view of money is very different from us. If I go to one of our kids and say, "Hey, I want you to do this thing. You can make some money doing it." I get very surprised and shocked and frustrated because they literally are not motivated by money at all. They're literally like, "Who cares? Money's not that valuable because it's everywhere." Right. Whereas me, when I was 17, oh, I'd be all over it. I was working grown man hours at Taco Bell because I wanted money so bad and I didn't have any. Right. So just understanding that how you grew up. and how it affects your relationship with money is really important, especially when you talk about connecting with these kids. And what's also interesting is that one limitation that some of us would have, some of us who did come out of the mud, and I put myself in that category. Like I said, we lived in LaSalle Place, which was government subsidized projects in Louisville, Kentucky. You can go check it out, right? It's still there. And I think my mama paid $20 a month for rent, something like that, right? So those of us who came out of the mud are gonna see money differently. And our blind spot is that we sometimes forget that there are 1,001 things in this world that are so much more important than money, right? We forget that. Our generation, those of us who were born poor, we're like, well, if you're going to get more money, then why wouldn't you do that thing that's going to help you make more money? That's how a lot of us picked our careers. That's how a lot of y'all picked your job. You went to college and you said, which major makes the most money? Oh, I want to major in that. Didn't even think about whether you liked the job or not. Didn't even know if you wanted to be a mechanical engineer. You just knew mechanical engineers made the most money, and that's where you were going. And I'm gonna tell you right now that that is 99% of the time that is 100% wrong. That's 100% wrong 99% of the time. But you did that because you had a deficiency. You did that because you had a void. When you got a void, then you become hyper focused on filling the void. That's it. When I was broke, all I cared about was being unbroke. That's it. I was Humpty Dumpty. I'm like, I got to put myself together again, and money's the only thing that'll fix this issue. So I've gotten to the point where when you're financially desperate, you'll do anything for money, and that's flawed because there's a million things happening in the world other than what's going on in your bank account. But you have to deal with that. Like if you have to go to the bathroom, the only thing you can think about is a bathroom. Someone could be giving you the secrets to the universe, and you won't be able to hear it because you got to pee so bad. So basically, that, in my view, I think it could be what happens with a 50 cent. It's like, okay, I was broke, and in order to not be broke, I went out and I got shot 9 times because I was trying to go get money. And because I got shot 9 times, and then I learned to rap about getting shot 9 times, now I've got millions of dollars. Problem solved. I am officially a successful person because maybe where I come from, success is measured by one variable, one criteria. Do you got money or do you not? Get rich or die trying. Thank you, Terrence. I got rich. I didn't die trying. I almost died trying, but I succeeded. So I didn't die trying. I was willing to die trying though, because getting rich was the criteria for success. And so what can happen is that when you're in that mindset, you don't realize you have a hard time seeing all the other areas where you've got even more significant deficiencies because you focused on the wealth so much. You forgot about the other important things that matter in life: mental health, physical health, relationships. You forgot about that. Because I get money. I get money. Remember that song? Right? Because you got money. So touchdown, you won. You won the game. I would dare to say maybe you didn't win the game completely, though. Maybe you didn't win the way you thought you were going to win. Because anybody who, for example, anybody who forgets about their physical health, also they can go chase money, is eventually going to lose all their money because they're going to have to pay money to get their health back. United Healthcare. That's why the guy got shot. I'm gonna tell you, I think that might have been a motive. At least that's what Luigi Mangione was writing about, is these healthcare companies and how they pretty much strip you of your wealth. So here in this case, you see where there's a miscommunication. They're speaking different languages. 50 Cent's like, look, I gave you $10,800 a month. What are you complaining about? Well, the son is like, bro, money doesn't matter that much. There's plenty of it. I was born in it. What are you talking about? What matters is that I don't get to see my dad. What matters is that I grew up unhappy and feeling unloved and feeling abandoned by you. What happened is that my mental health is not right. And because I'm 27 and I'm struggling. When I was 27, 28, I remember actually being 27. When I was 27, that was the worst year of my life. I don't know why, but there was something about being 27 where it seemed like my whole life just fell apart. So I was going through a whole crazy transformation at 27, and I know I needed some guidance. I needed a dad. I needed a lot of stuff. So that would be something I think to consider in that situation. The second piece of that too, and I'm gonna give y'all some research on this. And y'all know I wrote a book called Financial Lovemaking. So if you're into stuff like money and relationships and all that, you can actually get a free copy, a free e-copy of the book. It's free. Go to boyceandalicia.com, boyceandalicia.com. You know, my wife's a therapist and she's into the relationship stuff. Financial Lovemaking is more so about relationships and money. But for those of you that are interested, just go to boyceandalicia.com. You can get a free e-copy. All right, so if you were talking about this situation, first thing that I would say from a practical standpoint is that parents have to set boundaries when it comes to finances. Most financial therapists would tell you, and we have a Black financial therapy department in the Black Business School. We work with the best Black therapists to unearth the psychological barriers to building Black wealth. So the first thing is with parents, you have to set boundaries. Particularly if you have plenty of resources, because if you raise kids that are overly entitled, they never learn to fly because you don't let them grow their own wings. You have to put them in situations where they're going to be forced to do things for themselves, so they can gain confidence and competence and some ability to become a productive asset of the family unit. You cannot have a car where one of the tires is being dragged by the other tires. Every tire should be contributing to the movement of the car, and that is really something that has to be thought about for all of us bougie Negroes who came up out of the mud and we're in the next generation. Now we have a little something, and we're giving our kids everything that we never had, thinking that they're going to still be built like us. I don't know about y'all, but my kids are not built like me. Our kids will never be as hungry as I was because they don't know what it's like to be hungry because we made sure they were always fed. We don't want you. You don't want your kids to be hungry. I never. We don't. We just don't do that. Now, here's the thing. Does that mean that I want to replicate the pain and the trauma of my childhood so my kids can just know what it's like to come out of the mud? No. There were benefits to it, but it could have been done much better. You know, like we a lot of us grew up getting whooped by our parents, either beat up by your dad or whooped by your mom with a leather belt or something. I don't think kids need that. I don't think you need to do that to raise kids properly. So we got to learn new skills, right? I had to learn how to talk to the kids instead of just like knocking them upside the head, right? 'Cause that's what I just saw in the 70s and the 80s. That was normal, right? And but at the same time, it does mean that there has to be some mechanism in place that for which we've taken the responsibility of making sure that they are prepared to go out in the world and be successful. Because here's the thing about America that people don't talk about. Americans are just horrifically unprepared for life and really honestly kind of stupid. This is another reason why I think Black people, we got to educate our own kids. I wrote this down because I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Did you know that the United States, when they measured US like young adults against the rest of the world, we are 14th in the world when it comes to literacy. They out of 33 in 33 wealthy nations, we were 14th in literacy, 15th in adaptive problem solving, can't solve problems for shit, excuse my French. 24th in numeracy, which is the ability to just do math and use numbers to do. How you gonna go get money if you can't even do math? That's why we brought in Miss Asada and she does our math genius program in the Black Business School because I was like, you can't get money if you can't count, right? Um, and also this is crazy. One third of all U.S. adults do not even have the basic skills of a primary school student. They would be expected of like a fifth grader. They can't even do like fifth or sixth grade stuff, right? So we're in trouble. We really have a terrible deficiency when it comes to our educational process, and that's why I'm a big advocate of homeschooling and world schooling and anything other than public schooling because there's something going on with the public school system. I don't know what it is. So here's a few other points to keep in mind in terms of this relationship between father and son that we were talking about earlier. Studies also show that children raised in environments of financial abundance without responsibility can develop entitlement behaviors. We know these things. Financial independence is linked to better self-esteem and long-term success. So giving them a space where they can be economically independent makes a difference. A lot of times, if they don't learn these skills by the time they're 25 or 26, It becomes a lifelong habit. Also, communication and expectations. One big problem with a lot of this when we get mad at the kid because they expect too much from us is that sometimes the expectations were not properly communicated. So communication is critical. If you don't know how to communicate, my wife teaches people how to communicate in families. So if you want to go to coachingwithdralicia.com, you can take a look at some of her stuff. She has a whole course in communication. So coachingwithdralicia.com. The reason I'm bringing this up is because in many cases, when people talk about the problems they have in their relationships, it's a communication issue. Men, we don't really talk as much as we should, right? Men and women speak different languages. Our kids are different from us. And what I have really seen in so many cases is that broken relationships, broken business deals, etc., a lot of times it comes down to a lack of communication, the inability to properly communicate how you're feeling, what you're expecting, what went wrong, being accusatory versus knowing how to use I words instead of you words, just little basic things that therapists actually know. Like they have something called the four horsemen of an argument, the four horsemen you avoid, and it was criticism, stonewalling, defensiveness and I think contempt. Criticism, contempt, stonewalling, and defensiveness. So if I show contempt to you, it's not going to work. If I criticize you, it's not going to work. If I stonewall, which I got to go look that up to know exactly how that works, then it's not going to work. And if I get overly defensive, that's not going to work. And in fact, I remember one time there was a guy who criticized me a lot on the internet, and I was talking about him or something. He was in the chat, and he was talking back in the chat. I said, "Well, why don't you just come on in so we can talk?" And so we were talking in front of thousands of people were watching this video, and I wasn't interested in being defensive. I think that people thought it was going to be one of these, these awesome internet debates where we go back and forth and try to destroy each other. And I was like, why would I want to destroy another black man? I'm not trying to destroy you. I want to talk to you. I want to understand you. I want to hear where you're coming from. And then hopefully you'll hear where I'm coming from. And then two plus two will be four instead of two minus two being zero, right? My goal was not to destroy him. My goal was like maybe there's some common ground. Let's talk it out. Let's figure it out, right? So he would say something. He'd say, "Well, you did this and you did that," and I'd be like, yeah, yeah, I kind of did. You are right about that. But let me tell you what you did. It would be kind of like that, right? And I think some people were confused. They were like, well, Dr. Boyce kept folding to this guy and blah, blah. I was like, no, I wasn't folding. I know how not to fold. I know how to fight. I know karate. I just didn't see the benefit of it. I don't see the benefit of mutual destruction. I just don't, unless you're talking about someone who is a clear enemy, right? But for the most part, I think that the people in your family, why would they ever be the enemy? Why would your spouse ever be your enemy? Why would your child be your enemy? You pick that spouse. Like, what? How in the hell did you become enemies with somebody that you used to love? Something clearly went wrong because a year ago, 2 years ago, you would have told me that this person was your whole world. Now you're telling me that they're the worst person in the world. That's confusing to me. That does not make sense to me, right? So ultimately, I would encourage you go look up the four horsemen of an argument. Try to apply some of those rules, and what you'll find is that it just makes things a lot easier. And sometimes you might even have somebody that used to be an enemy that actually becomes a friend, and that feels so good. I had let me just tell you a personal thing. There's a comedian, Corey Holcomb, and Corey, I said something about Corey that made him mad. And Corey just kept on rail. Every week he would do an episode about me, right? On his show. That Dr. Boyce, he's a blah, 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 blah. And I was like, wow, I'm not even that important. He's talking about me every week. This is crazy. And so so anyway, it was getting kind of weird, and I was like, well, I'm not gonna try to outdo a comedian. I'm not a comedian. I'm not gonna make people laugh like him. He's good at what he does. So I just didn't really say anything. Whatever. And then there was a point where I realized we had a mutual friend, and so Corey and I talked. And Corey was like, "Well, we should talk about it online." And I said, "That's a great idea." And in my mind, I don't know what his plan was, but my plan was I want thousands of young black men to see what it looks like when two 50-year-old black men figure it out and work it out. And so we got on and he said, "Well, you did this and you did that." And I said, "Yeah, well, I maybe I did that, but here's some stuff that bothered me." And we talked it out and we walked away and we were friends. And that was my goal from the beginning. I was like, I'm not trying to fight this guy forever. There's no benefit to this, right? So now Corey and I are friends. We don't see eye to eye on stuff, but if he comes into Chicago and he's having a show, I could call and say, "Hey Corey, can I get a ticket to your show, man?" And he would do that, right? So my point is to say that, that this should be the goal in my opinion, right? You don't typically win if you create more enemies in your life. It's harder to build wealth if you're surrounded by a bunch of burnt bridges. I want you to really think about how often you see people that brag. They consider it a flex to talk about how many people they cut off in the previous year. They consider it a flex to talk about how quick they are to cut people off. Oh, if you do this and da da da, then I'm cutting you off. I'm cutting you off. Well, I mean, you keep cutting stuff off, and you ain't gonna have nothing left. Because relationships and family units and teams and groups and clubs, that's how people establish power in society. The whole world, when it comes to economics, the whole world is gang affiliated. We've discussed this in class. We've broken this down. I told you, Apple is nothing but an economic gang. They're a $3 trillion economic gang. They follow the same code of conduct. They wear the same little logo on their shirt. They have a set of rules. If you violate the rules, then you're out of the gang. The Asian Pacific Union is an economic gang. The Chinese are big on being gang affiliated. If you go to China, they're very, very strict about being China first. And Nvidia is having trouble in China right now, mainly because the Chinese government has basically told all of their businesses, don't buy from Nvidia, you buy from us, buy from domestic chip manufacturers. So gang affiliation drives economics around the world. And one of the things that people have to understand is that if you have no gang, no group, no, you don't, no organ, no nobody that you're loyal to, nobody that you're connected to, it is much, much more difficult to build wealth because wealth typically flows through the development of organizations. So organization, in my view, means uh, understanding what an organization is. If you look up the word organization or even corporation, one definition that's used in some managerial textbooks is that a corporation is a nexus of relationships, like a spider web. It's a nexus of relationships. When Disney makes $1 billion from a movie, there is no one guy who made the damn movie. There's not one guy who financed the movie, wrote the script, got all the actors on board, did all the animation, did all the AI, did all the marketing. There's no one guy that has ever made $1 billion Disney movie. There's thousands of people. There's a nexus of relationships that came together to create this thing, this $1 billion monstrosity. So relationships so never ever question or doubt the significance of relationship building and relationship maintenance as a critical aspect of building and protecting wealth. All right. So, with that said, really quickly, don't forget that tonight we're doing our Powernomics training at 8:30. If you want to join that, make sure you're on the text list. Text the word morning to the phone number 87948. Just text morning to 87948. And also on Friday, Miss Asada is doing the Black Wealth Prodigies boot camp for parents that want to teach math to their kids. Miss Asada is very good. You all saw her the other day. And I'll text out a link between now and then where for those of you that would like to join. So keep an eye out on your phone, or you can also email support@theblackbusinessschool.com and they can get you access to what you need. That's support@theblackbusinessschool.com. Last couple things I would say about 50 Cent in his whole situation with his son as kind of a prototype for a lot of what a lot of us go through. A lot of us have challenges when it comes to kids and family and parents and everything else. Is something about intergenerational wealth. So basically, parents who this is according to a research study, parents who aim to pass down wealth. Typically, in many cases, they struggle to balance providing support and fostering independence. And so, what happens is that if you think that the only thing you're supposed to transfer to kids is money, then you're not going to be able to transfer your money because they don't have the ability to manage it or protect it. That would be like me giving you a car and I never ever take you to get a driver's license, or I never teach you how to drive a car. I never teach you how to change the oil. I never teach you how to maintain the car. I never teach you that the car even needs tires. So if you get a car and you don't know how to drive one, how to maintain one, the responsibility that comes with a car, then you're probably going to crash the car. You may end up killing somebody, and your car, it will probably not last very long. So this is why 70% of all wealthy families lose all their wealth in one generation. 90% of all wealthy families lose their wealth in two generations. So ultimately, if you are 50 Cent and you're dealing with this thing with your son, it has to go deeper than just the money. I saw him mention the money, and the money is a lot. You know, most 27-year-olds should be able to survive with $10,800 a month. He's presented these financial opportunities for whatever reason. His son's not responding to that, and maybe he never will. Chances are he's not built like his father. He's not, 50 Cent. Remember, for all his flaws, 50 Cent is, for all purposes, he's a pretty extraordinary guy. He's accomplished a lot. So it's hard to expect anybody to be able to match that if they weren't nurtured and built in an environment that required that level of performance to be successful. 50 Cent is a great man because he was put in the pressure cooker. Most people can't say I got shot 9 times. Most people can't say that I went up against the most notorious gangsters in New York City and all these other things, right? So this idea that his son is going to be really built like him when he wasn't put in an environment that served as a training camp to prepare him to be that kind of a man would be kind of an unreasonable expectation, right? So I think that having grace and just realizing that just because you look like me doesn't mean that we're the same in that particular area, I think can go a long way. Because I go through that sometimes. So, one of the problems I had was when I was working on my PhD. I always believe in being like a humble person, and I still believe in that. I think there's nothing wrong with being humble. I don't want to be an arrogant prick. But here's the problem with humility sometimes is that sometimes with humility, you underestimate how good you are at something, right? So I remember that all through those years, I was going through graduate school and I spent all those years working on my PhD. I was studying 8, 9, 10 hours a day, 7 days a week, including Christmas. And because I was so hungry to get my doctorate, and I did this for years and years and years. So it got to the point where I would honestly say that by the time I was 27 and 28, I probably had the equivalent of 7 college degrees. Like I learned so much more after college than I did like I learned more in 4 months of grad school than I learned in 4 years of college. And I did this for many, many years. So what was interesting was I never felt like I was getting smarter though, because I was always stressed out and struggling. I was always, trying to get by, trying to pass a test, trying to deal with, the Russian genius in the class next to me. So I never thought of myself as getting smarter. It just seemed like the world was getting dumber. Like stuff that would be simple for me. I'd be like, why doesn't everybody understand this? Why don't people get this? Like, are you stupid? And then that can be insulting to people. And I've done that. I've insulted because I'm like, what are you doing? Like, this is dumb. And I've had to stop myself and say, no, boys, no, you have to realize you went through a unique experience. You went through a pressure cooker that most people can't even relate to. Like, so stop. Just acknowledge that okay, maybe you're pretty good at this stuff. Maybe you have some skills others don't have. And like Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan's a terrible coach. I don't know if y'all know that. He's a terrible coach because in his mind he's like, well, why don't you just do this? Why don't you just jump over the guy? Why don't you just shoot the 3-pointer? Why don't you just make this move or that move? And it's because he forgets that he's not Michael Jordan. You are. Right. So I think that for 50 Cent, I think that maybe I would imagine it's probably difficult to be his son. I think anybody who is the son of a really powerful, successful man or successful woman is gonna be a little bit stressed. I think I feel so bad for Bronny James. I admire him for choosing to be a basketball player and following in his father's footsteps because I don't know if I would have done that. Number one, you're not your father is 6'8". You're like 6'2". So how you can't be LeBron James. You're not even tall enough. And you didn't even win the genetic lottery. Your daddy likes short women. So now that messed you up, right? Your daddy should have been dating somebody from the WNBA, and then maybe you'd have a chance. But the fact that he likes like short women means that you're not even going to have the height to be what your father was. So chasing your father's shadow like that can be just so stressful, I imagine, for those poor guys. So ultimately, I would say that for him, he'd have to kind of acknowledge that, give some grace on that, and then I think learning what love really looks like. It's a complex thing. I think there's a difference, and again, I'm preaching a little bit, so please forgive me if I'm for doing this, but I got to share this. I think there's a big difference between loving somebody and caring about them. I do. I think that like I can love a car. I love pizza, but I don't care about pizza. And, if my pizza dies, I'm gonna just get another one. I love sports, right? But I care about the team I'm watching. I don't, like it's like I just watch something else. Um, but I think caring about somebody, I think requires like a type of selflessness that most of us don't even develop. We don't even stop to understand what the difference is. Like I see people all the time that say, I love my husband, I love my wife, but then you make that person miserable. You don't support their dreams. You can't empathize when they're going through something. You do things that deliberately stress them out. And you're like, well, I only do this because I love you. Well, if you really love that person, in my mind, I'm like, well, you would care about how they feel, but you don't care about how they feel. But you say you love them. How can you love somebody you don't care about how they feel? So in my view, when I think about 50 Cent or whatever, I don't know the relationship with him and his dad or whatever, or 50 Cent and his son, but I just I'm like, okay, maybe we should bring some love in the room. Love might mean I care about you and I'm not gonna judge you. Tell me how you feel. Tell me what's going on. Tell me what I can do to make this better. And I will do my best to submit to that. I have to draw boundaries, but I'm gonna try. I think really starting off by showing that you really care about someone can really go a long way. And I don't know how talking about your son on the internet is really showing that you care about him because that can be awfully embarrassing because you have 30 million Instagram followers who pretty much worship you and believe anything that you say. And if you say something like, I'm a lazy piece of shit who just takes a bunch of money and doesn't want to do anything with his life, now I got to deal with the pressure of that. And I'm only 27. I didn't get shot 9 times. I don't know how to deal with that level of pressure, that and anxiety. That's hard. That's really hard. I cannot imagine. Can you imagine having a father that powerful who's kind of dogging you on Instagram? And I'm not trying to be negative toward 50 Cent, but I would say, I don't know. I kind of think a little bit of empathy could be beneficial to realize the gravity of your words. Maybe you can say these things to him in private. Maybe you can talk to a therapist and have a mediator in the conversation. I don't know if this should be a public discussion. So the last point I guess I'll throw out there on this is that when you're talking about kids and money, I would encourage you to always make sure you have a plan. We brought in attorney Tamika, oh gosh, what's Tamika Johnson, yesterday, and we were talking about estate plans and stuff like that. I would really definitely say that when you're talking about raising kids and passing wealth on to the kids, don't just give them the wealth, give them a wealth plan. And then also look into the things like the trusts and estate planning and all that so that it gets passed properly and so that they're taken care of, while at the same time they're nurtured and supported and loved in a way that goes beyond the money. Money should not be passed on without a clear instruction manual on how to protect the resources that you've been given, because wealth is supposed to be like a car. If I have a car and I take care of the car, I can give you the car after I've been driving it. I can use it and you can use it. Or like a house. If I live in the house, then I can live in it my whole life. And then I pass the house to you. You live in it your whole life. Then you pass it to the kids. They live in it their whole life. But in the meantime, we got to manage the house. We got to take care of the house. We got to pay the taxes on the house. We got to make sure the estate plan is set up to pass the house on. But really, wealth is supposed to be that. A family that is financially intelligent should only have to have one generation that comes out of the mud. There should be only one generation that comes out of the mud. The other generations should be focused on staying out of the mud. That's it. They shouldn't be dropped back into the mud and have to climb out again. And that's one of the biggest misconceptions about wealth that happens in our community is we think that every generation is supposed to start from zero. Hey, I built it up. I made money. I'm rich. You're not rich. You got to start at the bottom and do what I did. And then the next generation's got to start at the bottom and do what they did. And that doesn't build anything. That doesn't allow us to have the intergenerational upliftment where one generation propels the next to a higher level than they ever could have been. See, most of the biggest, most wealthy families in America are built on this sort of stepladder thing where each generation adds to the pile, and then you're benefiting from what great granddaddy did back in 1924. But that does require a plan. It requires preservation. It requires a strategy. It can't just be this sort of hatred that I have for my relatives that says, well, what I got it ain't yours. I don't give a damn about you. Again, wealth, look at wealth like a house. If I live in the house my whole life, I get to enjoy the house, But part of my responsibility is to preserve and protect the house so you can live in it too. So that every generation isn't forced to go through hell to figure out how to buy a house. Where every generation ain't got to go get shot 9 times so they can become somebody and build something. Okay. All right. So anyway, that's it, guys. That's my 2 cents. Um, and I hope this conversation was helpful to you. And I really enjoyed talking to you today. We will be back tomorrow. If you want to join us for class, make sure you're on the text list. Text on your phone the word morning to the number 87948. Text morning to 87948. And I mentioned to you all the stock that I like. Right now, I'm going to go buy some shares of Uber because I think Uber is going to get rid of all their drivers. They're going to start using robots and stuff, and I think that's going to make them more profitable. So if you're an Uber driver, just know I don't think your company likes you very much. I think they kind of hate you, and so you probably want to find some other things to do because I don't see this as being a long-term viable way to make money. I hate saying it like that, but I got to give you guys the truth, right? And so if you have an interest in stocks and stuff like that, and you want to go deeper, feel free to go to drboycestockmarket.com. That's drboycestockmarket.com. I wrote my dissertation on the stock market. I'd love to help you out in terms of understanding how all this stuff works. So have a good day, everybody. God bless you.